Well, thank you all for joining us here today. Over the last few years, the National Park Service has been commemorating the 150th anniversary of the Civil War, reminding Americans and visitors from around the world not only of the great sacrifices made here at Gettysburg or Antietam or Manassas, but more importantly, the ideals that prompted such sacrifice and their relevance today. We have called it From Civil War to Civil Rights. It is absolutely essential that new Americans and recent immigrants to this country who aspire to become citizens see their dreams expressed in our national parks, in Independence Hall, in Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, the Statue of Liberty, and here at Gettysburg. They learn that the ideals articulated by Lincoln here 150 years ago did not come easily. The National Park Service has a unique role as America's storyteller, as educator, and facilitator of the experiences that form this nation's history. It is our task and our mission to demonstrate that the past is not old, but in fact, the words of a century and a half ago speak with immediacy today. Only 50 years after the end of the Civil War and nearly 100 years ago, the National Park Service was established. And from that moment, we entered into a pact with the American people in perpetuity that we would care for these places and the ideas behind them that mean the most to this nation. The men and the women of the National Park Service that you see among you in the green and the gray are very proud to shoulder this responsibility on your behalf. And we do not do it alone. Americans love their national parks, and we are incredibly appreciative of the support that you, our friends and supporters, that share this passion for these places. And one of those great supporters that shares our passion for the national parks and our public lands, who inspires us every day, is the 51st Secretary of the Interior. Please welcome Sally Jewell.
Thanks, John. Well, in the spirit of President Lincoln and out of respect for all of you who are huddled here on this cold morning, I am going to commemorate the legacy of Gettysburg just as Lauren did a few minutes ago in 272 words. 150 years ago, Abraham Lincoln said, "The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here." He was wrong. Just as the battle that raged on these fields stands at the vortex of American history, Lincoln's words stand at the vortex of our national consciousness. Hearing them, we are reminded of the sacrifice of so many for freedom. We are likewise reminded of our long journey, still ongoing, to fulfill the fundamental proposition that indeed all men and women are created equal and deserve the full benefit of this freedom that has been purchased at such great price. The steps on this journey are marked by eloquence. The patriot who regretted he had but one life to give for his country. The president who affirmed our resolve on a day that will live in infamy. The courageous woman whose simple no on an Alabama bus gave birth to choruses of "We shall overcome." The passenger above another Pennsylvania field who declared, "Let's roll," giving voice to a nation battered by terrorism. But no words are greater than those spoken here by a simple man, born in a log cabin, who not only saved the American Union, but also came to symbolize its greatest virtues of humility, of honesty, and decency. His words, chiseled on the walls of his memorial, are likewise chiseled on our hearts. They tell us what it means to be an American They call us to unfinished work, not just to win a war, but to continue to perfect our nation and a government that is truly of the people, by the people, for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Jewell. Morgan Brooks was born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. After attending high school there, she went on to study at Temple University, and during her junior year, she was accepted into the Pro Ranger program, where she completed a summer internship at Antietam National Battlefield, as well as her law enforcement training at Temple University's Seasonal Law Enforcement Training Program. In February 2013, Morgan began working as a law enforcement ranger in the Protection Division here at Gettysburg National Military Park. Please welcome with me, for purposes of the presidential commemoration, Gettysburg National Military Park Law Enforcement Ranger, Morgan Brooks.
President Barack Obama, a reflection on the Gettysburg Address, November 19, 2013. I'm pleased to join Americans across the country today to commemorate the anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. 150 years after one of the decisive battles of the Civil War, we remember the thousands of brave men willing to give the full measure of devotion for the country they loved. President Lincoln predicted the world would not forget what they did here, and he was right. And today, their courage and patriotism lives in our veterans and military families and in all our men and women in uniform. But we have also long remembered what was said here. In the evening, when the White House is quiet, I sometimes walk down the hall to a room Abraham Lincoln used as his office. It contains an original copy of the Gettysburg Address written in Lincoln's own hand. And I linger on these few words that have come to define our American experiment. A new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. What Lincoln understood, perhaps more than anyone, was that this self-evident truth was not self-executing. Blood drawn by a lash was an affront to that founding proposition. Blood drawn by sword was a struggle to affirm it. He understood as well that our humble efforts, our individual ambitions, are ultimately not what matter. Rather, it is through the accumulated toil of men and women, like the soldiers who consecrated that battlefield, that this country is built. This quintessentially self-made man, fierce in his belief in honest work and the striving spirit at the heart of America, believed that there is something larger at stake than us, that it falls to each generation collectively to preserve the freedom for which our predecessors so gallantly fought. And through World War and Cold War, revolutions in industry and information, movements for civil rights, women's rights, and gay rights, we have. At times, wrenching social and economic change has strained our union. But the trajectory of our history should give us hope. It should give us confidence that should our generation choose to dedicate ourselves to that great task, then whatever trials may come, this nation, under God, shall remain the last, best hope on earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Ladies and gentlemen, The 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
And now Wayne Hill will sing the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Thank you, folks.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. He has sounded forth the trumpet that shall never call retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him. Be jubilant, my feet. Our God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us live to make men free, while God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, joy. Hallelujah, His truth is marching on.